So when Imaginism Studios started, it was just a few artists living and working in one house. No distractions, just art. Anytime, day or night, you can find somebody up, somebody to paint with. Our artistic skills grew extremely fast as a result. We loved the experience, so we created the Schoolism Lake House 30-day in-house workshop. The Schoolism Lake House is a unique and exciting opportunity for a hand-picked group of 4 applicants, just 4, to be trained by professional artists in an inspiring and stimulating lakeside environment. If selected, you and 3 other applicants would be invited to move into the Schoolism House in Saint-Julien, Quebec, just outside of Montreal, Canada, for 30 days. Once there, you will follow the training program designed by Imaginism Studios for our new artists. You will become the personal apprentices of our senior artist, Thierry Lafontaine, affectionately known as T, as you learn drawing, painting, and digital painting from T and a special guest instructor. Past guests have included Nathan Fowkes, Steven Silver, Carcamo, Andrea Blasic, and many, many more. The Schoolism Lake House is dedicated to the training of concept artists based on the principle of learning by doing. For 30 intense days, you will live with T and acquire the essential art skills, daily practices, and philosophies that lead to a successful career as a concept artist in today's industry. Go to schoolism.com/house.php for more info. All right, hey everybody, and welcome to ChiuStream, where we talk about art and life as an artist. I'm your host, Bobby Chiu, and I also have on here my co-host, Mr. Matt Johnson. Hey Matt, how's it going?
Hey, Bobby, good to be here.
Right on. And this has been working so well the last couple of times where I start off with a topic, and so today's topic I want to talk about is how I fast-tracked my art career. Something that people can do, something that's actionable that people can do, and hopefully people will get a lot out of it. So here we go, okay? And as we talk, you can also see me draw. Okay, so fast tracking your career. Here's the very first tip: focus on and care about the things other people that are older than us focus on. This really, really helped me a lot in my career, Matt. So, for example, when I was a teenager, I thought, what do 20 something year olds care about? Well, they care about getting their first job, right? They just graduated college, they're trying to get their first job. But then I also noticed that the people on, say, the Fortune 500, or not the Fortune 500, the top wealthiest people in the world, the 500 most wealthiest people in the world, like half of them actually never went to school. I'm not saying not to go to school. I'm saying that we don't need to wait until we finish school before we start. That's what I'm kind of getting at here. And so when I was 17, I went to try to find my first art job, right? Eventually got to work in designing toys. A lot of times when you show that spirit, when you show that tenacity, people give you a chance, even if you didn't go to school for something. Next one, okay. Oh, actually, let's keep going there. Okay, so when I was 20 something, what did I think about? Well, I started to think about what did people in their 30s think about? More specifically, what would I think about in my 30s? That's what I thought about because, you know, especially as we get older and older, our paths will, they'll veer off more and more, right? So some people will think about their families, some people will think about their careers. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about my independence, right? How do I get the maximum life out of the time that I have? How do I design my life so that it's of my design as opposed to life itself, kind of steering me in whichever way life wants to steer me?
So you were in your 20s thinking about this,
Yeah,
and most people you'd say are in their 30s trying to get a grip on that, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's a lot harder to say, okay, I need to start. I need to have a crop of vegetables now,
Yeah. I
right?
see
You
that.
got to start planting the seeds early on. So then, In my 30s, what did I think about? I start to think about how do I make life a better place for specifically for the art community. And that was also this long arching kind of thought, but it became much more important in my 30s, right? And so now I'm entering my 40s and I'm starting to think about what would I care about in my 50s, 60s? And that's balance. How do I keep my life balanced? That's what I really care about now. So that I can keep doing the things that I'm doing over and over again for decades and decades. So
That's great. Long term is hard. Long term is a really hard thing to think about, I feel.
that's where the power is. That's where our advantage is because if I'm thinking about the stuff and caring about the stuff and working on the stuff that 50 something year olds care about now, by the time I get to 50, I've already had like a 10-year head start, right? And
That's
that's
such a
something we could all do.
That's a great technique because you tell me to think long term, and I say, okay, well, what does that mean? There's so much that I need to worry about, from finances to how am I going to learn how to draw a head better. But if I'm thinking in terms of ages, like that's how I felt about a couple of artists that were my uh, inspiration. I was like, man, that guy is 10 years older than me. In 10 years, I want to be able to draw as well as he can draw. And that really did help. So I can see that as a really good trick.
Right on. Well, let's go on to the second one here. The second one is do more than you're asked of. Well, that one's pretty simple. That one we've probably all heard before, but this is how it works, okay? When I was starting off my career, a lot of times you don't get the best jobs. You get jobs that don't pay you very much, right? Maybe $300 for like a week of work, and you're thinking, is that worth it? Man, that's not worth it. I'm going to give this person whatever I think $300 is worth and then move on to the next job. Now, you don't want to give everybody stuff for free. You want to have value for your art, but how to get a really great head start, that $300 job, make it like a $6,000 job. Will the person want to hire you again? Yes, absolutely. Will they want to pay you more? Probably not. But now you have something in your portfolio that's worth, a lot more. And it's something that you did for an actual client, right? Which gives whatever it was that you did a bit more power. Like, this is what I did for this company that, it's a small company, but people can still look it up. And then they could see that the awesome job that you did for this indie magazine, for example, and the person that's looking at your stuff works for Time Magazine and goes, yeah, this person does $6,000 jobs. This person does $10,000 jobs. I can hire this person.
That's great because it seems like oftentimes we get preoccupied by how much money we're going to make, maybe, but also by how much time it's going to take. So it's not just that it's $350, it's that I know ahead of time it's going to take me so long that it gets a little discouraging.
Yeah, but we're not after more $300 jobs. We're after
That's
that
right.
$6,000 job. So how we get that? By doing $300 jobs? You don't. You
You
never will
don't.
get there.
That's great. Never do the $300 job. Always go higher.
Yeah, even when you're getting paid $300.
And that's awesome.
Let's go on to the next one here. Next one is make room in your schedule for learning. Now that can be a tough one, especially for like new dads, new parents like yourself, right, Matt?
That's absolutely right. I would say, um, yeah, I won't say that being a new parent makes it too hard. I think that helps you get a lot more structure in your schedule, but it is definitely hard to schedule time to learn when you're thinking about all the other things you have to do in life.
Yeah, and that's absolutely not to say that parents have a disadvantage or things like that. A lot of times it's
Sure.
the exact opposite where parents get super inspired because they have kids. Now
Hmm.
it's not just for them. It's for this little helpless squiggly little worm that looks kind of like you and makes you smile, right?
That's absolutely true. You're thinking now, like, oh man, what's he going to think of me when he's a teenager? I want to be a cool dad, you know? I want him to see all this cool stuff I was doing when he was a kid.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next one here. So the next one, so that's make room in your schedule for learning. So start off with an hour if you can. You know, if it's less than an hour, if it's half an hour, fine. But put it into your calendar and repeat it so that it's happening every day or every week. Do something that's totally manageable for you and then try to expand that time frame or make it even more common in your schedule more and more. Because there can be a point, and you can choose whether or not to go down that path or not. There can very likely, especially nowadays, be a point where all you need to do is learn. For example, there's a lot of really amazing independent artists out there just using things like Gumroad or Patreon and things like that, where they're learning and then they just teach whatever it is that they're learning, and then they earn their income that way. And then they just have to keep learning. My version is, I started schoolism. So I have to go to a lot of these workshops, have to in air quotes. Nowadays I don't really have to, but I love to and I do, right? So then all of a sudden learning becomes part of the job. Let's go on to the next one here. So number 4, and there's only 5 of these. And if you do all 5, I guarantee you, you're going to have leaps and bounds in your career. It'll go super quick. Okay, number 4 is get out there and meet people. Now that's another one where it's like we do have an advantage here because most artists, I'm being very general about it, but most artists, they aren't as social as, say, other professions, right? And we can kind of say that. A lot of us artists, we become really good at art because we weren't that social, right? Because we just stayed at home and drew Dragon Ball Z over and over again until we got it right, or whatever it is that kind of inspired us to do some art. You know what I mean, Matt?
Absolutely. I know that I can attribute a big chunk of why I was able to get better at art in high school was that I didn't go out the same way a lot of my other friends did. I did stay home a lot. And that really, it led to me like working more on my art. But now I see where getting out and meeting people is much more fruitful for my career. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The last interview that I put up, which is a fantastic interview, highly recommended to everybody. It's with one of my artistic heroes, Greg Manchez. And I met Greg years ago at an event, right? And it wouldn't be nearly the same kind of thing if I asked Greg out of the blue, hey, can you do an interview with me? Instead, there was, some history, some context, and I didn't just meet him, I talked to him when I was there. So go out there and meet people. Now, here is a very simple exercise for everybody to shake off a little bit of the meeting people jitters, or whatever you want to call them, if you have any. Okay? Every time you go into elevator by yourself, you have to say hi to everybody in there. Okay? So if you're going into the elevator and somebody comes in, all you have to do is say hi. And if you're already used to saying hi, then I suggest that you challenge yourself, turn it up a bit, and try to make an actual conversation.
I like that. That's a good tip. It's not hard to start a conversation with somebody just by asking a couple of simple questions,
Yeah.
making a couple of simple statements.
And the thing is, if you're practicing in an elevator, you can crash and burn a couple times, and it's okay. It wasn't in front of your favorite artist or something like that.
Very true.
So the next tip to speed up your career, have an independent project going that will help the company. Imagine that, right? Imagine that you are working at this company and they don't really care for computer animation, but you actually go ahead and you tinker and you tinker and you tinker without the go ahead from the studio, without their approval, you keep tinkering on how to make a dinosaur in CG and move. Right? That was a real story at ILM. They
Hmm.
weren't going to do computer animated anything for Jurassic Park,
I did
right?
not know that. That is so they actually ended up working on that as an independent project, like
After
unsanctioned.
Hours, Rebel artists. Um,
Wow.
the animator was Spaz Williams. I got a chance to meet him in Portugal a few years ago, and he was telling me the whole entire story. Like, they were in the little dungeon. They were like, nobody really paid any attention to them at all. And, uh, and they were just tinkering. Um, it
Was
was
this
too,
like late hours? Like they would stay late, or is this like just during work? Nobody noticed what they were up to, or
I'm
do you
not
know?
100% sure, but I'm pretty
Wow.
sure it was like, it seemed like late hours. That's
Yeah,
like
it's got
real
to be like
passion.
around the clock kind of a job anyway.
Yeah, and then what they did was they had an animation going, and I believe the story goes that a producer came into their part of the studio one day. They forgot to kind of take that thing off the screen. They forgot to cover it up. The producer looked at it and was like, "What is that? There's a dinosaur walking, right?" And then before you know it, they have a few shots in the film that are computer animated. Now, interesting thing is that we all know of this awesome movie, Jurassic Park, as like one of the first to do that kind of computer
Hmm.
animation to that level. But did you know that it was only a few shots? It was actually only a few shots that were computer animated in the movie. The rest of it was all animatronics, whatever else.
I didn't really think about the number of shots that would be computer generated, and then when they're mixed well with practical effects, then it's just a seamless experience.
Yeah, and that's a huge independent project that's going to help the company, right?
Hmm.
And because of that, if for the people that are old enough to remember those days, Spaz Williams, and I am kicking myself for not knowing the other guy right now, but there are two of them, and Spaz, obviously, that's a name that's easier to remember.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the other one will come back to me. But they were on TV. I remember them. I remember seeing them on Entertainment Tonight, like they were rock stars of the entire industry,
Wow.
right? So have an independent project going that will help the company. Now, if you're like me and you have your own company, do something, have an independent project to help out your own company. Do you have one of those, right? Because if you do, wow, you will fast track your career big time. Now, for me, what did that mean? That meant schoolism, right? That was an independent project where we didn't know where it's going to head to. We didn't know what it'd become.
And when you started, it was only a few classes, right?
Yeah, it's just two classes. It's my
Yeah.
my class and Steven Silver's class.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So then you look at other things like, say, Nico and the Sword of Light, the animated comic book that I made uh, with Kay and a couple other friends, Jim and Adam. That again was an independent project that could help out the company, and we put in 2 years into that, a lot of time, and that became a huge thing for our studio. We won an Emmy because of it, and a lot of other doors opened up. And now we're starting on this other project, which is Lightbox Expo, starting our own art convention.
It's going to be amazing.
So there you go. There's the 5 tips on how I fast tracked my career, stuff that everybody can do, and hopefully everybody will do it. And let me know the results in the comments. You know, um, Something that I was talking about as one of the tips was go out there and meet people. In the very beginning of the stream, I was playing this commercial about the Schoolism House, which we are ending. There's only a few more times that we are going to have this Schoolism House. Um, but there's workshops, there's all sorts of stuff. But if you really want to get to know people, the Schoolism House is a great way because you literally are living with people for 30 days. And, it's like almost every time the people that you're surrounded with are people that you will remember for the rest of your life.
For sure. Absolutely. I know I will.
And that was how long ago for you?
Oh, that was 2013, 2012, maybe even earlier. It was early 2010s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? It's like, you met people,
Mm-hmm.
but we also met through the Schoolism House and we still talk and we still know each other, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the best advice I got in my life was that month. It was awesome.
Fantastic. Well, hey, applications are still open. If you're interested, highly recommend it. And we're only doing it a couple more times. So it's literally just 4 people accepted at one time. Why don't we go on to some questions here? And
Yeah.
for those of you that are new to the stream, I want to let you know how to ask a question. Okay, you can see in the small words above arteducation@schoolism.com. It says send questions to slido.com. Hashtag ChiuStream. I will put it on full screen here. Full screen here, and no login required, no anything required. You could just type in your question, and then the best thing of all is you vote up the questions that you want to hear answered the most.
There we go. And our most popular question right now was asked just before the stream started by Jennifer. When you ask a question, if you put your name in there, I'll be sure to shout you out. How do you decide on a path or direction to focus your efforts on when you're interested in a lot of different styles and a lot of different industries?
Fantastic question, Jennifer. I kind of take, okay, it's either you're going to think about it logically and go, if I go down this path, where will I end up in a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever it might be? That's the easiest way. You go, okay, yeah, that's the place I want to go to in, you know, 2 years. So I'll go down that path. But there's plenty of us that don't know enough about a path to know where we're going to end up, 2 years from now. So in those cases, what I say is kind of just do the Forrest Gump method of just start running. Just choose one of them and just start going for it. Just start doing it for a good long while until you feel like your art has changed, until you feel like you've really grasped something new. And then decide whether or not you want to continue with it and get better at it, evolve it, whatever, or move on to something new. The main thing is that you don't want to spend a lot of time on something and it wasn't enough time to really learn anything at all, and then you move on to something else, right? Because that's kind of like the epidemic that is
Mm.
spreading across this new generation where we all try something for a short amount of time and then move on. And then we try 20 different things, keep moving on, and by the end of it, 2 years have passed, and we haven't really increased any of our knowledge, any of our skills.
That's great because it is easy to want to jump from thing to thing when I should probably spend a month with a certain thing, at least a month. And, not just watching some videos on YouTube real quick, but, really dive into it and learn it. And I appreciate that because sometimes I don't stick with something until I have a breakthrough. And I think that's key to what you said.
Yes,
Stick to it until something happens. That's great advice.
absolutely. Stick to it until you have a breakthrough. I love how you kind of put that into words.
Cool. Let's have another question. That was a great answer to a great first question. We're off to a good start here. Anonymous asks, "How can you tell whether your art is good enough to start applying for jobs or internships?
Uh, I feel like at any moment, and I say that because if you have enough charisma, if you have enough kind of personality, you can get a start in just about any industry with no education. Do you believe that that's true?
Really?
I,
Um,
well, I've hired people like that as well, where it's like, this person really seems like an honest person. Whatever she's saying, I believe it. I believe that that's how she is. That right there is already valuable. To have people that will speak their mind in not an asshole way, but just like in a nice way where it contributes to the different opinions, the different routes that we can go, stuff like that. That becomes very valuable to me. Um, yeah, I've hired a couple people like that, and it always turned out really well, actually. Uh, but if you have a little bit of a beginning, a little bit of an education, then you have a even more of a head start, right? When I started working in toy design, I didn't know how to use the computer. I didn't even like computers, right? Like I didn't like to turn on a computer is what I mean,
Jeez.
right? Because this was before the internet. I didn't even, yeah. So it was because I went in there with a very genuine curiosity, a very genuine kind of like everything I was saying was very genuine. It came straight from the heart. I don't know this. I would like to learn. Uh, and I don't mind spending extra hours just messing around and learning more.
I think that's been key for my jobs in my career is just don't go for the job that you're absolutely sure you're qualified for. Maybe aim a little higher than that and be ready to learn and be ready to expand yourself. It's like going to the gym. You want to you want a little bit of a challenge and you also need to express to your future employer or whatever that you really are up for that because yeah, I was listening to an interview with a guy. I think he was the guy who started Tempur-Pedic mattress the other day, and he said a quote I really liked. He said, I if I was going to do the job that I was qualified to do here, I would be sweeping the floors. I just thought it was a very interesting quote. So sometimes there's a little more tenacity that goes into it, like you're saying. I think it's great.
Love it.
I'm gonna
No, I love
move
it.
on.
Yeah,
And
sure.
then yeah, random advice from the Tempur-Pedic mattress guy. There you go. Any advice on how to start getting work experience in the industry for people who've never studied animation at a school, excuse me, and thus have no connections? It's kind of a little bit similar question, but it got upvoted, and I think there's a little bit there about not having connections that might be important to talk about.
Yeah. I've first, it's totally doable. I've seen many examples of this. Iris Compete comes to mind. Awesome illustrator, does fairy art like nobody's ever seen. Uh, First met her at a schoolism workshop in London, England. I want to say like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. She was just starting off, and now her new book, Fairies of the Fault Lines, has a foreword by the king of the fairies, Brian Froud.
Wow.
And how did that happen?
So, did she come to the workshop as a student or to be an
Yeah,
instructor?
yeah, as a
Wow.
student, as a student.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, next year we plan on bringing her in as an instructor. So, talk about full circle, right?
Wow, that's great. Is this someone you're saying seemingly had no connections that just kind of made the bridge happen there with the workshop?
I don't know what kind of connections she had, but she did not
Hmm.
have Brian Froud connections,
Right.
you know? Um, yeah, and it is very interesting as well, like how these people are able to um, reach people that aren't on their level, that are much higher.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I've done that as well. One thing is just trying and being okay with people saying no. Uh, and I talk to everybody. Generally, I will try to talk to as many people as I can. Um, I think that was from going to conventions a lot. Going to
Conventions
convention,
are, yeah, that'll do it.
yeah, because a lot of times people they don't have name tags that say director on it, producer on it. It just says their name, and maybe it's not even their name; it's their friend's name, and they're borrowing the badge. That's happened before as well, and you never know who you're talking to. So I just started getting into the habit of just trying to talk to everybody. I forget exactly what the question was originally, but
It's very similar to what we had already discussed about starting to
oh,
get work
yeah,
experience.
yeah. But actually, I would love to give a bit more advice on this because it is something that anybody can do. You don't know anybody, that's totally fine. There's lots of people I never knew and lots of people I never met, and I just started to grow that relationship over the internet. Now, if you are not this high level person where somebody goes, oh, wow, that person commented on me, I'm going to comment back an instant rapport, instant relationship, right? If you're not one of those, then have meaningful comments and comment all the time, right? And it's not comments where it's like, how do you draw hands? Where it would take me like a week to write back to you, which I probably wouldn't, because I just don't have enough time. But instead, they're questions or they're comments that would either make me smile or make me want to write back, not in an angry way, okay?
Mm.
Because there's very easy ways to get people to want to write back, but a lot of them are probably in angry ways.
Definitely don't provoke the people that you look up to
Yeah,
anger, right?
yeah, and
Uh,
for a lot of like every time I see Jenny Luco now, I know that that's Jenny Luco. Who's Jenny Luco? That's an artist that has been communicating with me for years now over the internet. You know, things like that. How did we still kind of
yeah.
hang out and like how did that happen? Because you know what? A lot of people they don't know, but Matt is a very good writer at like
Oh, thank
especially
you.
emails.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Maybe you
I
could
try.
talk a little bit about that.
Well, okay, sure. On the spot a little. I'll do this. I think it's important to if we want to talk about email specifically, when you want to email somebody, I think be very concise about what you actually want to get out of that conversation. Being concise is key, but also being reading the email that you wrote as though you are the recipient. Like, I'm Bobby Chiu. I have 15 things going on. I have an assistant. I have a flight that leaves in the morning. Okay, if I'm going to email Bobby Chiu right now, I'm going to be very considerate of his time and try to get right to the point. And then, maybe that is more likely to get you an answer. I would also phrase my questions in ways that are easy to answer so that you can kind of end up with a yes or no situation in some cases. That's a little advice off the top of my head.
Love it. That was really great advice.
All right. Good deal. Let's see. Another question here. Um, yeah, that was when we answered there. CJ Rusoto. Let's see. What do you do when you have many weaknesses or things you want to learn and you don't know where to start?
Pick one. The same kind of thing. It's that Forrest Gump thing. You know, if you embody that Forrest Gump mentality, which is, for those of you that never seen Forrest Gump didn't have the highest IQ. He had quite a low IQ, but he was very successful in everything that he did. Why? Because he didn't think about and question. After he started doing it, he didn't question anymore. He didn't really think about it. He just did it, right? He wanted to catch shrimp. He just kept going until he caught a whole bunch of shrimp. He wanted to go running. He just started running until he made it all the way to the other side of the USA and then started running back. Um, Ping pong, same kind of. If you take that into your own lives and you're just nonstop all about that, you're going to be great at whatever it is that you choose. And then afterwards, you can decide whether or not you want to move on. But just like the first question that was asked earlier on, make sure that you do it until you actually learn something, until you can take away something from that experience.
That's a great point. I like that. It's real. It's easy to get to the point that if you start something like even ping pong, he started ping pong, right? And I think in the movie he was like playing against the wall or something, and you get good eventually. You get good eventually. That's nice. Um, let's see, Kelly at Penny Pretzel Comics on Instagram. That's cool. How do I organize my self teaching? I'm overwhelmed by what I have to learn for storyboarding, anatomy, gestures, posing, character design. Where do I start?
So it
Where
was,
do I start seems to be a common theme today.
well, so the question is about teaching or learning?
Organizing self teaching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like to have themes, right? So have a theme in your head and stay in your lane until you learn the bejesus out of it and you're
Mm.
super good at it. So um, that part I feel like I've been good at, where I would just have a theme and I would just keep going on that theme forever and ever, and then until I can paint any kind of fur, any kind of hair, like the back of my hand. Uh, and I'm saying that example because I'm looking at this little furry guy and I start to think about when I got obsessed with fur. Um, Next thing I want to get really obsessed with is night vision, like nighttime paintings. How to kind of express different versions of nighttime scenes.
What about like different mediums? Like, yeah, I've seen is like the last few streams have been a lot of these tonal paper drawings.
Yeah, well, as you get good at one thing, what I try to do is I try to expand, but not go completely in a different direction, right?
Mm.
So you start painting fish. Maybe the next thing after that is you start painting reptiles. They're not, it might be a desert reptile, so it's not aquatic anymore, but it still has scales.
So you're kind of changing direction, but a little bit at a time. You don't do a massive switch to airplanes all of a sudden.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I just try to expand my circle of knowledge more and more. I don't try to make a whole nother circle and start expanding that. I'll
Yeah,
expand my current circle so much that it gets into other circles.
gotcha. Oh, that's great. That's a good way to look at that. That's a good visual.
Because if you think about it, you start a new circle, you're starting from nothing. A new circle of knowledge, I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You're starting from a point where you can't actually use it to make any money generally. And it's not all about money, but it's about the ability to do again what we love to do over and over again, more and more. So if you already start off with a good amount of knowledge, a good circle of knowledge, and you keep trying to expand that more and more, however you expand it will most likely be in a way where it already has value. So,
Okay.
if you, for example, if you're starting off with, say, creatures, my example, right? You start off with creatures and you're really into furry creatures. Then you get into bioluminescent creatures. So these creatures, they could still have similar anatomy to other things that you know of and that you can do. But
Hmm.
now it has a bioluminescence about it. So that's like the texture of the skin, right? So then most likely I'll be able to do that in a somewhat decent way where it's still valuable and I could use that for another project.
That's great because it gives you a little bit of confidence too when you take those steps a little easier. Like I feel like if I was going to try to draw bioluminescence and I already knew fur pretty well, it would be a smaller step and that'd be really easy.
Yeah, or futurism. There's all sorts of different kinds of futurism. So maybe your thing is like this sleek looking, beautiful, utopian futurism, right? Well, after you really learn that well, start to get into dystopias where
Mm,
the world is crap in the future. What does that look like? Right? You're still dealing with technology. You're still dealing with the future. You're still dealing with environments perhaps, and now it's just a different version.
that is a great way to think about organizing what you're going to teach yourself. I think it's a really great way to answer that question too. Um, let's ask another question. First of all, the one that shot to the top is this guy, Ivan. Hey, Ivan. He says, "Hi, Bobby. I have a lot of charisma but can't draw at all. Will you hire me? Pretty please?"
Almost there, Ivan. Almost
Almost
there.
there. You made him laugh. That's what's important. So there you go. Anonymous asks, "Somehow I got selected for one of the last house sessions. Congratulations. I am using a schoolism subscription according to the curriculum, but what's the best way I can prepare?"
Well, generally, people they ask, what order should I do the classes in? That I don't really have a good answer for that because not everybody wants to go down the path of becoming this type of artist or that type of artist, right? If you're into environments, where do you start taking character design classes? I don't know. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you do need to if you plan on painting in some like keyframes of the film. You need some characters, and you're just concentrating on the environment. Uh, so, in that respect, I don't know. But
Hmm.
how to actually do the classes, this is what I would suggest. Watch the lesson one time where you're just watching and you're fully concentrated. Get that popcorn. Don't worry about picking up a pencil or nothing. And just watch it. And then watch it again while having a pen or pencil in your hand, writing down notes, trying it, right? And then after that, I wouldn't, if you did the homework already, fine, but that's warm up homework. Watch
Hmm.
the other videos because there's all these videos of the instructor going on top of somebody else's assignment and talking about what people are doing right, what people are doing wrong. There's always common stuff, and there's always stuff that will relate to whatever you're doing. Then do the homework again. And generally, as I'm doing this, I'm playing that lesson over and over again as long as I can take it, right? Whether I'm paying attention to it or not, I'm just having it in the background. I could tell you there's been plenty of times, because I take these lessons too. Don't forget that, right? There's plenty of times where I'm listening to uh, the lesson just in my subconscious, and then it'll kind of turn on to being like I'm fully aware of what I'm listening to. I hear something else. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't remember that, and all of a sudden I level up just because of that. I could try something new, and all of a sudden it works. I'm like, whoa, that's cool.
I think definitely you get a lot out of those lessons. What about in regard to, I think Anonymous was saying they're going to be at the one of the Imaginism in-house workshops
Oh,
and preparing for that a little bit too. Any advice there?
um, well, what do you have any advice? Because you actually you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
you were actually
I
at the
did it.
house.
I did the thing. Yeah, I did the number two. It was the second one ever. I was shocked and amazed that I was asked to go, but it was cool. I would say be warmed up. Like it's gonna be intense. It's gonna be 15 hours a day of first class, and then unless the structure has changed. But I think there's a lot of time you're gonna spend learning, a lot of time you're gonna spend on the homework that Terry gives you. The homework is not meant for you to go to bed at 8:30 and still be finished with everything. It's going to be serious. So it was fun the whole time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to intimidate you, but I would be warmed up on my ability to draw, just sketch, just simple sketching, and warmed up on your ability to work with digital painting. Just don't show up having not painted for 30 days or something, and feel like you're just going to hit the ground running. You got to go in conditioned.
I for me, I've never done the Schoolism Lake House as a student. I've gone many times as an instructor, but
Hmm.
what I would say is get your mind right, get ready to come there amped, right? Don't try, try not to go there feeling like you already don't want to paint, that kind of thing. Like jazz
Mm,
yourself up
that's
because
true.
uh, passion is the road to your potential.
Passion is the road to your potential. I like that. All right. So another one here. Top of the list. Anonymous. How do I become famous? That's a good question. I constantly am uploading my art and comics for a year, and it's so hard to get noticed that I want to give up. Man.
Mm. 1 year, keep going. That's number one. Uh, because however much time the average person takes before giving up, you got to do at least 50% more than that, or be ready to at least, because you don't want to be the average. You want to be famous. You're not the average if you're famous, right? You're above average in most cases, sometimes super below average. That's why you're famous, but that's a different topic. But yeah, like you want to put in more effort than the usual person. I remember, okay, one of the first things that helped to fast track my career, since that is the topic of this week, was subway sketching. For those of you that have been around for a while, you know all about the Bobby Chiu Subway Sketch Group in Toronto. That was a group that I started when I was first starting off, um, just teaching people on the subways of Toronto. Whoever wanted to come, I teach them for free, and I did this for 5 years. Uh,
That's
after
so cool.
every after every session, I would post online. Uh, we met the group met today. Blah blah blah. I would go from my place, go downtown, wait for people. Nobody would show up, and I'd get on the train and start sketching for like 2.5 hours every weekend. And I kid you not, every weekend, pretty much nobody showed up. It was me.
Wow.
Sometimes it was my old roommate, my good buddy Jesse Schmidt. He lives in Vancouver now. Or it's my wife, who was then my girlfriend, K.S. Dara. We would go sketching together. Or just myself on my
How long
birthday,
before other people started showing up? On your birthday?
New Year's Eve, right? Anything. It didn't matter. As long as I was in town, I would go. How long did it take? It took over a year. It took to the
Wow.
point where I stopped caring if people were going to show up or not. And every weekend, I would finish by posting online. The Bobby Chiu sketch group and the Subway sketch group met today, and here's the drawings I did. And then after like a week, or a year or something, then this very popular site back in the day called cgtalk.com uh, saw it, wanted to promote it, since it's a good idea and it's a free idea. Good ideas spread, but free good ideas spread like wildfire. So then all these other people, they wanted to create groups and such, and they started making their own sketch groups, and they would give me the honorary title. So they would be like Bobby Chiu's Paris Subway Sketch Group, Bobby Chiu's Istanbul Subway Sketch Group. These were all real sketch groups. I there was even one where the person was like, "We don't have subways here, so we just go to like abandoned buildings and we just draw." I'm like, I don't know if that's the best idea, but hopefully it's safe. Uh, but it spread like crazy, right? And that was a huge boost in my career because of the Subway Sketch Group. So keep going, past the average person.
That's great. I think I've lived in. Only rarely lived. I lived in New York for a little while where there was mass transportation, but I mean, going to the mall or going to a bookstore, go anywhere to draw. You can make it happen. A little off topic, but there we go. So we got another question here. Very popular question from Tadam from India. I hope I pronounced that right. How to start out as a creative designer or a character designer or concept artist from scratch. What are the most basic things we should focus on and build on those to become a character designer or concept artist?
Beginning part is knowledge, foundation, technique. It's all based off of knowledge, right? Foundational skills. And foundational or fundamental skills. Fundamentals is kind of like that word we throw around like concept art nowadays. It's such a like easy phrase to throw around. So let's be a little bit more specific with that, okay? Fundamentals. There's different kinds of fundamentals for the different kinds of art that you can do. Okay, so if you are drawing people all day, you want to be a character designer, you want to know the fundamentals of character design, which also means anatomy. Right? If you're a vehicle designer, you don't really care about people so much, well, then human anatomy doesn't really matter as much. But you do need to know the guts of a vehicle. And you'd want to know how different hinges work and things like that. So those would be the fundamentals of a car design, right? So you want to start off with learning the fundamentals of whatever it is that you want to be awesome at. And at the same time, you want to look at the real thing or as close to the real thing as possible. So if it's creatures, you can't find a alien creature, but you can find other interesting textures, other interesting mechanics of live stuff. You can find all this knowledge on different animals, right? And so that's what I mean by going out there and finding the real thing. And then look to other artists that have great interpretations of that subject. So if it's landscaping, start looking at some Richard Schmidt landscapes or Nathan Fowkes landscapes and things like that. If it's character design, you might want to look at Peter DeSev or Carter Goodrich for all these awesome character designs, Nicholas Marley, that kind of thing. And you want to see how they interpret life, pretty much, that aspect of life. And you don't want to stick to one. You want to gather as many as you can, right? Every time you feel like you have one under your belt, move on to another person that you're studying. And if you can be a successful artist and still have scheduled in that time for learning in your schedule, and you're constantly studying new artists, you will be a force to be reckoned with. Like, people will be like almost scared to compete with you, even though I don't believe in competing with anybody. People will be like, oh, dang, that person, look out for that person.
All right. Another question here from Julie. How do you position yourself as a premium creative service in a world where Fiverr and Upwork are encouraging creatives to compete in a race to zero? I love that question.
That is a really good question. Now, are there different versions of this in real life that still sustain really good businesses? Yes. Food, right?
Mm.
How much money do you need to fill your belly, whether it's good food or bad food? And then how much money could you spend filling your belly? It's completely different. So, is it going to be a lot harder if you're making corn dogs, and then you want to transition into gourmet foods from making your corn dogs? Yeah, it's going to be really, really tough, right? In the very beginning, I was saying, do more than you're expected of, right? So next time somebody orders a air quotes corn dog, a art corn dog from you, you give them the most beautiful, the most brilliant deconstructed corn dog in this artistic, beautiful way on this beautiful gold plated plate and all this stuff. That's how you move up, right?
So really increasing the quality and the experience of working with you makes it where people say, okay, there's something here more than just the end product,
Yeah, I
right?
think we could say it like this. We dictate too much of the quality that we're going to give to somebody by
Mm,
how much they're going to give us. But if you want to be given more, the easiest, the best way is just to do more. This commission that I'm doing on the screen, I do not do commissions very often at all. Um, and I'm taking my time with this. How much did this person pay me? Probably not enough for me to spend this much time on it. But I'm going to do it anyways because this will plant the seed. And next time I want to do commissions or something like that, just for the heck of it. A lot of these people, they will come back, hopefully, if I did everything in the right way. And a lot of their friends, a lot of the other people that have seen the original and know, oh, hey, yeah, they got it for a decent price or whatever it might be. Or maybe they don't even know the price. They're still going to just want it. Uh, so I always try to put my best foot forward, and that's the best, easiest way to get a fast forward in your career.
that's such a great way to look at it. Thank you. This question's been floating around for a little while. I'd really like to see this one answered. I'm interested in what you have to say about this. Do you meditate first or do art first? You talk a lot about meditation, and would you care to go into specifics about the types of meditation you practice?
Yeah, sure. So it depends on which one I do first. If I have some good ideas, if I feel the art happening, then I'll go straight to the sketchbook first.
Hmm.
If I'm feeling the meditation happening, then I'll do the meditation first. And the meditation is also paired up with, it's called the Wim Hof method, WIM, and then Hof, HOF method. That's like this breathing exercise, meditation kind of thing. It's all rolled into one. So actually, I do that. Did that this morning. Felt awesome. Sketched a little bit, before I ran to the gym. And sometimes it's the other way around. I really let my mornings be my free time to do whatever productive things I want, but take as much time in each of these productive things as I'd like. To an extent, I still got to go to work.
That's great. So when you're going to meditate, is it separate from those things or is it part of those activities?
It's very much part of the Wim Hof method. So, first, it's like these breathing exercises, and then it's actual exercise, or I could go into meditation. So it
Mm,
depends on how much I want to do of each. And then I have this longer meditation that I do from, it's a guided meditation again by this Dr. Joe Dispenza. He wrote this book called um, The Placebo Effect, which is a pretty awesome book
hmm.
for those of you that like books.
Yeah, that was. I think you may have mentioned it last week about like even if you can just control not having a negative thought, like just think about don't have a negative thought for an hour. Try not to. All that's still meditating, right?
The mind game comes into play at any high level of anything, I feel. I can't think of one thing where if you get to the highest levels of that thing, let it, whether it's taking out the garbage, disposing of garbage, to accounting, to art, to whatever, the mind game comes into play. So, like, do I still want to do that after X amount of hours? Um, do I believe I can do that? These kind of
Mm,
things. It becomes such a big deal. Um, if,
all right.
yeah.
Well, I feel like this next one, it's gotten voted up to the top. We've kind of talked about this a little bit today, but I'm going to ask it anyway if you want to add anything, Bobby. Any advice on how to build towards studio work with no professional studio experience? Currently building my portfolio, and I'm feeling very stuck at this point. Thanks, June.
how I would do it if I had to go back and erase everything, okay? I would, first of all, I would make a good chunk of my time dedicated to learning the biggest I
Mm-hmm.
can, especially in the beginning, because in the beginning you didn't really learn that much. Um, and then from there, what I would do is I would start to shoot. What was the question? I want to be very specific
Sure.
with this.
Build studio work with no
Oh, right.
professional studio experience.
Yeah, then I would start working on a quick version of my art, like having beautiful sketches,
Mm.
and working on a finished version of my art, the art that takes a lot more time, a lot more preparation, because both are very important to kind of show your thinking uh, for possible clients.
So, like studio work specifically, your people are probably going to want to see your sketches a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you don't get to go any further until they say, "Oh, I really like this sketch I'm seeing right here."
Because anybody that knows how to sketch, anybody that can do really good art, they can also pretty much tell if your sketch was fast or if it was slow. You know, they can
Mm.
tell a lot from a sketch. Um, and they'd want to know too. And then you want to see the finished stuff as well, because a lot of times the finished stuff is the stuff that you would show the non-artistic people in presentations and such when your film is done, or when your image is done for the film. Um, then I would pick a project. I would just start doing it. This is if I erased everything, I start all over. That's exactly what I would do. I would think about, okay, uh, for example, what's it called? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find
Yeah.
Them.
Mm-hmm.
The newest one just came out. Well, what's the next one gonna be? Maybe it's all this stuff in the sky. I don't know. Whatever it might be. This like wizard world in the sky, for example. So
Yeah.
then, well, what kind of magical, fantastical beasts live in the sky? Start working on it. Start taking it very seriously. That's exactly what I would do. I start writing notes even right beside the creature. This is what the creature does, right? And then start to show it visually. Uh, take the project that you want to work on and allow yourself to work on it. That is the best way to start doing those things, uh, as a profession where people are actually paying you to do it.
That's a great way to practice for sure.
Also, just big shout out to artist Ryan Lang, incredible artist. He got to work on a lot of the Marvel movies, and the way that he got on, from what I heard, was from a painting of Iron Man versus some other comic book supervillain or whatever.
Hmm.
A still image, and then it looked amazing, it looked professional, whatever. And before you know it, he's on the actual movies.
Wow.
So
So
there you
yeah.
go, everybody. I think we're pretty much out of time here, huh, Matt?
Yeah, I guess so. A lot of great questions today. Appreciate it, everybody.
And I appreciate Matt for helping out
Yeah.
with all of the comments and everything. So thank you very much, Matt. And thank you to everybody that tuned in. It's been awesome. I hope everybody will put into the comments if they tried any of these things, how to fast track your
Mm.
career and all that. And let us know in the comments, or perhaps future topics that you would like to hear.
Mm.
Uh, we are listening and we are reading them. So thank you to the audience, and thank you, Matt. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Now, a huge part of the success of this channel and everything that I do is because of you, the listener. So thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and then press the notification button, because that way you'll get instant notification the next time I put out a new video. Thank you very much.